Would you like me?
Yes, Hare Krishna Mataji, thank you so much for giving us your association today on this very beautiful Saturday. It's always a pleasure to have this association. As we continue the Srimad Bhagavatam, today we are doing Srimad Bhagavatam 3, chapter 15, and we are on verse 46. So I don't know, Mataji, would you like?
I'll do the Mangalacharan. Yes, thank you. Hare Krishna Prabhuji and Mataji, thank you so much once again for giving me the opportunity to do this service. So I'll do the Mangalacharan before, and then I'll quickly read the verse. Hare Krishna. Om Agyana Timirandhyasya Gyanan Janashalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tashmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manubhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Swapadantikam Vandyaham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Satvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vikshakhan Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priya Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhaivacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Thank you once again, Mataji and Prabhuji, for giving me this opportunity to do the service. I do the service with the mercy and blessings of my Guruji. Without his mercy, I wouldn't have been able to do this service. And I seek blessings from the divine couple Radharani and Krishna and from Gaur Nitai to allow me to be able to do the service and make me say whatever they wish me to say for my own purification. And I seek all your blessings. If I'm wrong anywhere, please do correct me. Hare Krishna. So we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 15, verse number 46. And I'll read the verse. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. If I can see the verse, Prabhuji. Kumara Uchaha Yo Nitarhitariti Katopi Duratmanam Tvam Sotvaivano Nayana Mulam Ananta Rata Yarheva Karna Vivarena Guham Gatonaha Pitranuvarnita Raha Bhavat Udbhavena. Hare Krishna. And then the translation. The Kumaras said, Our dear Lord, you are not manifested to rascals, even though you are seated within the heart of everyone. But as far as we are concerned, we see you face to face, although you are unlimited. The statements we have heard about you from our father, Brahma, through the years have now been actually realized by your kind appearance. Purport. The so-called yogis who concentrate their minds or meditate upon the impersonal or void are described here. This verse of Srimad Bhagavatam describes persons who are expected to be very expert yogis engaged in meditation, but who do not find the Supreme Personality of Godhead seated within the heart. These persons are described here as Duratma, which means a person who has a very crooked heart or a less intelligent person, just opposite to a Mahatma, which means one who has a broad heart. Those so-called yogis who, although engaged in meditation, are not broad-hearted, cannot find the four-handed Narayan form, even though he is seated within their heart. Although the first realization of the Supreme Absolute Truth is impersonal Brahman, one should not remain satisfied with experiencing the impersonal effulgence of the Supreme Lord. In the Shopanishad, also, the devotee prays that the glaring effulgence of Brahman may be removed from his eyes so that he can see the real personal feature of the Lord and thus satisfy himself fully. Similarly, although the Lord is not visible in the beginning because of his glaring bodily effulgence, if a devotee sincerely wants to see him, the Lord is revealed to him. It is said in Bhagavad Gita that the Lord cannot be seen by our imperfect eyes. He cannot be heard by our imperfect ears, and he cannot be experienced by our imperfect senses. But if one engages in devotional service with faith and devotion, then God reveals himself. Here, the four sages, Sanat Kumara, Sanatana, Sanandana, and Sanaka, are described as actually sincere devotees. Although they had heard from their father Brahma about the personal feature of the Lord, only the impersonal feature of Brahman was revealed to them. But because they were sincerely searching for the Lord, they finally saw his personal feature directly, which corresponded with the description given by their father. They thus became fully satisfied. Here they expressed their gratitude because although they were foolish impersonalists in the beginning, by the grace of the Lord, they could now have the good fortune to see his personal feature. Another significant aspect of this verse is that the sages describe their experience of hearing from their father Brahma, who was born of the Lord directly. In other words, the disciplic succession from the Lord to Brahma, and from Brahma to Narada, and from Narada to Vyasa, and so on, is accepted here. Because the Kumaras were sons of Brahma, they had the opportunity to learn Vedic knowledge from the disciplic succession of Brahma, and therefore, in spite of their impersonalist beginnings, they became, in the end, direct seers of the personal feature of the Lord. Hare Krishna. It's a beautiful verse. So we're reading in this chapter, we are reading about the description of the Vaikuntha Loka, the place where Lord Narayan lives. And in the previous verses, we have seen how first the four Kumaras, they were not allowed to go through all the seven gates. They were stopped at the seventh gate. And then we see how they finally get through. The Lord comes to know about it. The Lord comes, and they see the beautiful form of the Lord. They also get to smell the tulsi and the fragrance of the tulsi from the Lord's lotus feet. That reaches them, and the smell of that turns them from being impersonalists to great devotees of the Supreme Lord. Now, there are two main points that are touched upon in this verse. Firstly, the fact that the Lord only allows for them to see him, to see his personal form, only if they want to, only if the devotees want to, if they have the eagerness to see his form. And secondly, how true knowledge about the Lord comes through the heart, and that too through disciplic succession. So these 2 points are touched upon in our verse today. Now, in June 16, 1968, in a lecture in Montreal, Prabhupada mentioned that a devotee can directly interact with God. Prabhupada said that you can dance with Krishna, you can eat with Krishna, talk with Krishna, and you can enjoy with Krishna. And he would talk in all of his lectures, Prabhupada would talk about Krishna as if he's a very, very familiar friend. And Prabhupada would tell his devotees that you just serve Krishna and just try to, serve him, and he will give you the intelligence, he will give you that, he will draw you closer to him. There was a devotee who had dropped out of college, and Prabhupada asked him, can you please become the editor of the ISKCON magazine? And the devotee said, I'm a college dropout. How am I going to do that? And Prabhupada said, no, just try. Krishna will help you. Krishna will give you the intelligence. So immediately, the focus was on building this personal relationship with Krishna. That is what Prabhupada always mentioned. So throughout the Shastras and, the Acharyas, the Gurus, Shastras, they all mention over and over again how we have an eternal relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Our basic relationship with Krishna is that of parts to the whole. We are all parts and parcels. That's the first thing we are told, even in the introduction to the Bhagavad Gita, that we are parts and parcels of that Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Supreme Soul. And just like, if he's the sun, we are like the sun's rays. If he's the ocean, we are like a drop in the ocean. If he's the fire, then we are just sparks, tiny sparks of that fire. So we are part of him. We are not separate from him. So ultimately, the Lord is the source of our existence. Even if we want to, my Guruji says, even if we want to, we cannot, separate ourselves from Krishna. But we are just mere mortals. Even if Krishna wants, he cannot separate himself from us, because we belong to him, we are part of him. So it's impossible to actually, be separated from him. So now, how we relate to him is up to us. And that is the key thing we have been mentioned in our verse today as well, especially when we talk about the Kumaras. So we are told that most people in this material world, especially in Kali Yuga, when we come to this material world, we try to forget God entirely. In the book Prema Vivarta, which was written by Jagadananda Pandit was a classmate of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he was also actually a manifestation of Satyabhama. Does anyone know who Satyabhama was?
She was the queen of Dwarka. She was one of Krishna's wives in Dwarka.
Yes, he was one of the queens of Dwarka. And so Jagadananda Pandit, he was a manifestation of Satyabhama. He came in Chaitanya Leela, he came as Mahaprabhu's classmate, and he wrote the Prema Vivarta. And there he wrote about Mahaprabhu's pastimes in Navadvipa. But in that book, he mentions, and this is also mentioned in other Vedic writings, we are told that we've all come to this material world in the first place because we want to forget Krishna. And Krishna allows us to do that. We read last week as well, how in Bhagavad Gita 15:15, Krishna says, I'm seated in everyone's heart, and from me comes remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. So Krishna does not interfere with our free will. He keeps himself out of sight, maintains us at a distance, and provides us with all our necessities of life, while patiently waiting for us to turn towards him again. So if someone wants to just forget Krishna, Krishna allows that. As long as we wish to avoid having a direct relationship with Krishna, our relationship remains like that. Krishna doesn't involve himself in that. He allows our free will to make that choice. But we are told that when we have this either no relationship with Krishna, we completely forget him, or we have an indirect relationship with Krishna, or we have, like the impersonalists, a very, very impersonal understanding of Krishna. Then there are various stages one goes through. And the first one is, one may be resentful and begrudging, that, they may not believe in God, and they may not necessarily like him. They are begrudging, they're resentful of God. Secondly, there might be people who are selfish, and they are always asking, okay, I'm happy to have this relationship with God. However, what can God do for us? So I can only get into that relationship with God if I get something in return. Thirdly, there are people who say, okay, who may deny the existence of God, and they are atheists, and they are just really antagonistic. Or there might be others who are very competitive of the Lord. They may overtly or covertly wish that they were God. So they try to become God. They become the controller. They become, they want to control people. They want to control situations, control circumstances. So they are competitive of God, or they are envious of God. They want to take his position. And lastly, there are the apathetic ones who just don't care about God one way or another. That, yes, there is God, so what? I've got my own life. Now, none of these indirect relationships give us real peace or real happiness. They don't, because we are disconnected with the Lord in a superficial way in this material world. When our true existence in our constitutional position, we are eternally connected to the Lord. So sooner or later, there's this nagging sense of incompleteness in these lives, as if they're missing something. There is no happiness. It becomes, and slowly, when this dissatisfaction becomes unbearable and all other options have been exhausted, that is when one turns to the Supreme for answers, because they feel empty. We feel empty. And then when we truly turn to the Lord to get some answers, that why is this happening to us, Krishna arranges for us to meet his devotees. And from them, we can relearn who we really are and how to re-establish our lost connection with our souls, the Supreme Lord. And we are told that, as we have also read previously, how every single one of us, in whichever 8.4 million species we are in, we all have a direct and eternal relationship with Krishna in one of the 5 main rasas, Shanta, in the neutral form, in awe and reverence, or in Dasya Bhava, where it's in the mood of servitude, wanting to serve the Lord continuously as a master, or in the form of a friend, Sakya Bhava, Sakya Rasa, or in Vatsalya Rasa, where Krishna is thought to be in the form of a parent of Krishna, and then the last one in the conjugal love in Madhurya Rasa. So all of us, in whichever 8.4 million species we live in now, we all have this eternal relationship with Krishna, which we have forgotten. And happiness slowly comes back to us once we establish this personal relationships. And so, as with any relationship, Krishna revives it to the extent we put our own effort into it. Ye yathamam prapadyante tams tataiva bhajamyaham. Krishna says, as one responds to me, I respond back to them. If one is impersonal towards me, I will be impersonal towards them. If one hates me, I will leave them. I won't trouble them. But if one loves me, I will love them back equally. And so the Kumaras, we are told, they have been moving in the Brahmajyoti. They were devotees, but they had only reached that first stage of realizing Krishna, the Brahmajyoti or the Brahman stage. And they have been moving in the Brahmajyoti, which surrounds the material, which is just above the material sky. And they've been traveling around them, and their impersonal effulgence of the Lord, that whole circle. And then, whilst going around in the Brahmajyoti, they came across the Vaikuntha planets, which is just above the Brahmajyoti. And there, they were driven with a desire from within their hearts to enter into those Vaikuntha planets. Now, we are told by acharyas that, one cannot just walk into the Vaikuntha planets. This was actually a plan of the Lord, as will be revealed to us later on. Now, we have to understand the first thing, the Kumaras, they were traveling around in the Brahmajyoti, but they were driven with a desire from their heart. So they had this desire to go into the planets, to go into the Vaikuntha planet. And because they had that desire, why? Because we are also told in the purport, we are in the verse, they had heard about those planets from their father, from their guru, Lord Brahma. So although they were devotees and their realization had only reached the very first stage, the Brahman stage, they didn't really particularly understand anything beyond the Brahman stage, but they had that desire to go into the Vaikuntha planets. And so whilst traveling in the Brahmajyoti, they came across the Vaikuntha planets, and the Lord allowed them to go into the planets. And so the Lord wanted to teach us something through the four Kumaras, because it was the Lord's plan that they see Jay and Vijay. It was the Lord's plan that they are going to have this altercation. They will be cursed, and that will allow the Lord to come into this material world and enjoy with his devotees Jay and Vijay the rasa, the Virya rasa. So it was all the Lord's plan. So the very first point being emphasized over here is that for those who are not sufficiently sincere, the Lord refuses to manifest his personal form. To them, he only manifests his impersonal form. So he only manifests his impersonal form to the four Kumaras because initially they were not interested to know more about the Lord. So the Lord left it there. But then slowly their desire increased, and they were traveling around in the Brahmajyoti, but their desire increased to want to see the Vaikuntha planets. And that is when the Lord allowed them to come across the Vaikuntha planets, allowed them to enter the planets. So we are told that the Lord does not give full understanding to people who do not want to understand him. Now, the very famous verse in Bhagavad Gita 4.34, Tadviti pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadeksha shanti te jnana dhyaninas tattva darshana. Or just try to learn the truth. Krishna says, try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master. Inquire from him submissively and render service unto him. The self-realized souls can impart knowledge unto you because they have seen the truth. So what does Krishna say? That learn from someone who has actually seen the truth. And who are these people? They are our gurus, the spiritual master. But how should we approach them to see the truth? This path of spiritual realization, it's very, very difficult. There are questions which we do not understand. You know, we come across questions. There are so many people asking, oh, I've read the Mahabharata, I've read the Ramayana. Why does this happen? Why does Sita have to go through so much trouble? Why doesn't Ram, being the Lord, just save him? Why does Sita have to give Agni Pariksha? Why is Draupadi sitting over there, not a single person saving him? Why and whys and whys? Now, there are people who really want to know the answer. And there are people who think they know the answer, and they are just, through their own mental speculation, and they think that they have understood it. And so they question the validity of these situations. So in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says very, very clearly, ask submissively and try to understand. That vitti pranipatena, ask submissively and try to understand. From whom? Someone who has seen the truth, not from any random person, not from another person who's also a mental speculator. Now, acharyas tell us there are two ways to know, to understand knowledge. You can ask a question. One is prashna, the other is jignasa. Prashna is when you ask a question, and many a times it's just as if, we know the answer, we are just testing you. We know, we understand everything, I'm just testing you. So testing the guru, questioning validity, the false ego reigning supreme in the heart that I know everything. So, yes, I wonder why this is, but I think I know the answer. And the next one is jignasa, like Parikshit Maharaj, people who really, really want to understand. These are things, people question, oh, there's Krishna dancing in the middle of the night with so many gopis, and, making fun of that, the Rasa Leela. Whereas others might say, it's in our Shastras, there must be a reason, there must be something beyond what we just see apparently. And that is where the jignasa comes in, understanding by wanting to know the real reason. So when Krishna sees there is the real desire devoid of one's false ego, that I understand everything, then Krishna gives that knowledge to that person. Krishna allows somebody to be able to, or Krishna arranges things so that knowledge can be given to a person. But where there is false ego, where there is questions just out of mental speculation, then Krishna just lets it be. Krishna doesn't interfere over there. And so we see over here, the Kumaras, they wanted to know, but that desire had come into them. And so Krishna arranges for that. So we are told in the purport about the Jnanis and the Yogis. So we are mentioned how they are very different to the Mahatmas. They are mentioned in the purport as Duratmas. Even crooked, Prabhupada says they are rascals, they're crooked. Why? Because they go on mental speculation. First of all, they want to, satisfy their own senses. They just want knowledge. So they read books, they read a lot of books. There are people who know all that they read the Bhagavad Gita, they read Ramayana, Mahabharata, they read all the Shastras, they know everything. And Krishna says in the Gita, you can know the Vedas cover to cover, but that would still not make you understand me. Because what you've got is you've just read through a book, and that's reading a book is not gaining knowledge or gaining understanding of that knowledge. It's just reading a book. It's as good as reading any material book, a fiction or a non-fiction. but understanding is what makes a difference. So the Gyans, we are told, and the Prabhupada mentions it, that they are called Duratmas because they just want to acquire that knowledge just through reading or just knowing the knowledge. And then when they just want to satisfy their own senses, because there is satisfaction even in acquiring knowledge. That, yes, I read this. I know the contents of Ramayana. I know the contents of Mahabharata. So there is the satisfaction of knowing that knowledge. But that is just simply satisfying one's own senses. As Prabhupada told the person who came and told Prabhupada, I can recite all the 700 verses of Bhagavad Gita by heart. And Prabhupada said, but tell me one verse which you actually live. You live that verse of Bhagavad Gita. Don't tell me how many verses you can recite. So that knowledge, or what we get, that is what the mental speculators do. When they don't get enough happiness through that, then they become yogis and they try to meditate on that. But when one can meditate, one can get all the mystic powers. Krishna gives that to them. So the impersonalists, they become great yogis. All the impersonalists, they are great, great yogis. Krishna imparts that, that to them, but they still do not get true knowledge. They still don't have, because it's devoid of bhakti. And so we are told that the yogis, the jnanis or the yogis, their suffering or their mental speculation, that never stops. That does not, they don't get that true happiness which one gets from bhakti. So they might reach to that knowing the Brahman, but there is that hunger which cannot be satisfied, which can only come from true bliss that reaches a devotee. And so in the purport of a verse, Prabhupada mentions that these so-called yogis who concentrate their minds or meditate upon the impersonal or the void, they engage in meditation, but they do not find the Supreme Personality seated within their heart. And the heart becomes so very important. They're described as Duratma, completely opposite to a Mahatma. And so although the Kumaras, they were engaged in meditation, they were not able to see the four-handed Narayan form, even though the Narayan form is seated in one's heart. And when one becomes self-realized, one actually sees the Shamsundar form, the two-handed original form of Krishna in their heart. So, even in the Ishopanishad, the devotee, we are told in the purport that the devotee prays that the glaring effulgence of the Brahman, they may have reached that, but can that please be removed so that they can see beyond that Brahma Jyoti and they can actually see the personal form of the Lord. And what does Krishna say? Krishna say in the Bhagavad Gita 11.8, he tells to Arjuna, you cannot see me with the physical eyes of yours. I grant you divine vision. So unless and until Krishna grants us that divine vision, we cannot see Krishna. And when does Krishna grant us that divine vision? When we have the desire to see him. Unless and until we desire to see Krishna, Krishna does not grant us that vision. In 7.2 as well, Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains that our senses are imperfect and the real self is beyond them. So the Lord cannot be seen with our imperfect eyes. We cannot see him. Now, in one of his classes, I was just listening to a class by Radhesham Prabhuji, and he was explaining it's just like he was giving the example of a billionaire. It's just like, if someone comes to the door of a billionaire and wants charity, it's not necessary that the billionaire would see him. If he gets to hear that, yes, they just want charity, he might actually ask one of his persons, one of his managers to go and give that charity to him. However, he gives the example of one of the devotees he came across, and he said that this devotee, he used to go and meet this big people, and he used to say to them that you need to listen to me. You are a leader. Okay, you are, this devotee would go to, directors of organizations or directors of educational organizations, and they would go and say, you are a leader, and Krishna talks about you in the Bhagavad Gita. I can tell you what Krishna says. And they would immediately, their interest would be piqued, and they would say, what? And so, in chapter 3, verse 21 of the Bhagavad Gita, what does Krishna say? Yad yad acharati shestas. So Krishna explains that whatever a great or a prominent person does, common people follow that as a standard. So this devotee would say that because you're a leader, you need to know this knowledge. Because if you don't know this knowledge, how can you lead properly? So if you give me some time, just give me an hour in a month, in a whole month, give me an hour so that I can teach you how to be a great leader. So immediately, these big people, they would just find, time, an hour. They would want to meet him. Because they know this person is not, they haven't come for charity, but they have come to tell him how he can become a better leader by which to lead his organizations. And slowly, as they listen to the Bhagavad Gita, their interest would increase in Krishna, because Krishna is the all attractive. The more we listen to Krishna, the more our constitutional position of our soul, that gets more and more attracted and attached to Krishna. And so, similarly, Krishna wants to know how interested are we in him, not in, not in what charity we can do for, we can get out of him. Both Duryodhana and Arjuna, they both went to Dwarka, and one of them, Duryodhana, chose the Narayani army of Krishna. And even if you notice in the first couple of verses in the Bhagavad Gita, Duryodhana mentions the names of great warriors. Not once does he mention the name of Krishna, who was a great warrior himself. He doesn't mention that. Why? Because he thought, this Krishna is not even lifting any weapon. He's not going to fight. So what's the point of mentioning Krishna? He was not interested in the personality of Krishna. He was just interested in what Krishna, what he can provide, and he was fine with just the army. But Arjuna, he understood that the entire truth of everything lies in my relationship with Krishna. If there is Krishna, there is everything. I don't need anything else. Ravan, he wanted to enjoy Mother Sita without the Lord. Mother Sita is the Lord's energy, Ram's energy, the Shakti. But that led to his destruction, the complete destruction. We see lots of people just wanting to, serve Mother Lakshmi without Narayan. And Lakshmi doesn't stay. Lakshmi is Chanchala. She doesn't stay where there is disrespect of Narayana. So similarly, we say without Radharani, it's impossible to get Krishna without Radharani. So Arjun knew that Krishna, we need both. We need the energies of Krishna, and we need Krishna himself. So both together is all existent in Krishna. He's the source of all these energies. And so if we are with Krishna, that is what is required. Duryodhana made lots of plans throughout to destroy the Pandavas, but he wasn't able to. Whereas the Pandavas, they were completely penniless. They had nothing. They were leading a life in the forest. And in the 13th year of their life, they even had to go do Agyatavas. They couldn't even reveal who they were. They had no kingdom, no wealth. The only thing they had was Krishna on their side. And what does Sanjay say? Right at the end of the Bhagavad Gita in 1878, Yatra Yogeshwara Krishna, Yatra Partha Dhanurdhara, Tatra Shri Vijayo Puti Dhruvaniti Matir Mama. That wherever there is Krishna, wherever there is this true devotee of Krishna, victory lies with them, not with anything else. And this is what Krishna tried to show, or tries to show anyone who wants that desire to see him. And this is the desire which was slowly and slowly arising in the four Kumaras. And so they drifted towards that Vaikuntha planet. So they meditated in their impersonal stage. But because they had heard about the Lord from their father, Lord Brahma, their interest increased slowly, and Krishna allowed them to drift towards the Vaikuntha planets. And so we see another example Prabhuji was giving of Sudama's wife. Now Sudama made every possible excuses to his wife that, no, I don't want to go and see Krishna. He wouldn't even recognize me. He was only a childhood friend, because Sudama didn't want Krishna to see him as he was, as a beggar now. And he was just happy. He didn't even complain, not having food, not being able to eat properly. He was just happy, just serving Krishna, meditating on him. He was a pure devotee. So he was thinking, if I go like this in front of Krishna, he would be pained to see me in this form. So he tried to make every excuse to his wife that I don't want to. But his wife said that, you are a true devotee. You are a true devotee of the Lord. And Krishna gives himself to those who are always remembering him. Krishna doesn't deny his audience to devotees, and he cannot really hide himself from his devotees. Krishna couldn't hide himself from Radharani. When after the rasa dance, he vanished from in front of the gopis for a while, because the gopis had pride in them. They all started thinking, oh, Krishna is only dancing with me. As soon as pride entered them, Krishna immediately disappeared. Because where there is pride, where there is thinking of one's own self before the person who one loves, before Krishna, Krishna disappears. And so the gopis were just looking around for him. And Krishna took the form of Narayana, the four-handed Narayana. The gopis went and asked Narayana, can you please tell us where Krishna is, our Shyam Sundara? And Krishna, in Narayana form, Krishna said, no, I don't know where he is. But when Radharani came, Krishna couldn't keep his four-handed form. In front of Radharani, Krishna couldn't hide himself. Automatically, his two-handed original Shamsundara form came back. So where there is a true devotee, as Sudama's wife was saying, Krishna, even if Krishna tries to, Krishna cannot hide himself from them. And so, go and see Krishna, because he loves having this personal relationship. And so we see how in our verse today is directly what Kunti Maharani also tells Krishna in Srimad Bhagavatam 1.8.27, that you give understanding and liberation to the monists, the impersonalists. You give them, they want liberation from you, they want to merge into you, you give that to them. But there's nothing to reciprocate with them. That sweet exchange of rasas, there's nothing to reciprocate with them. And so you stay away from them. if they don't want it. But when there is that urge in the devotee to have that personal relationship with Krishna, Krishna allows that. And that is the most important thing we have to understand, that let's not get cheated by Krishna. That, you know, when we have started in our path of bhakti, let's actually reach that stage where we can have and relish that very, very personal relationship with Krishna. With Prabhupada says, you can dance with Krishna, you can eat with Krishna, you can do whatever with Krishna. You can, you know, tell him off. If Krishna is not listening to you, you can tell him off. As we see that great devotee, I forget his name, he was very poor, and he was ill at one time, and he couldn't go and get food for his devotee. And so Krishna was in the altar, and because he would speak to Krishna all the time, and Krishna said, you wait, I will go and find some food for you. And this devotee, he just, he just got so angry with Krishna. He said, what? You just stay in the altar. You don't have to do anything. You know, don't take away my service from me. So he was telling off Krishna. And you have that power because Krishna comes under the control of the devotee. Krishna loves that. Krishna loves being scolded by Mother Yashoda. Because there is that personal relation with them, because they think of Krishna as their own. And when that thinking comes that, you know, Krishna's mine, Radharani and Krishna is mine, and, you know, I belong to them and they belong to me. As soon as this personal relationship starts, that's what they want. That's what Krishna wants. That's all he's looking for. That's all Radharani is looking for. They don't want anything else from us. And Krishna allows that to them. So the four Kumaras say that, you know, we had heard about you from our father, but now you have allowed us with your by your mercy, you have allowed us to see you. And they were so very grateful of that. Now, the next point, there's only 5 minutes left. So the next point that is touched upon in this verse is the fact that there is this emphasis from whom did this interest in the four Kumaras come? Where did they hear about the Lord from? And they heard about the Lord from Brahma. So first, Lord Brahma himself, he heard about, he heard these 2 words, tapa, tapa. He was lost. And then he meditated on these 2 words. And then he got the got the darshan of the Lord, the beautiful darshan of the Lord, his lotus feet, what he was wearing, his pitambar dhoti, his jeweled belt, his cost of a jewel on his chest, his golden hair, his 4 hands, the blue beautiful hands, his smiling face, the earrings, so the beautiful form of the Lord, and that touched Brahma, and he saw the form of the Lord. It brought tears to the eyes of Lord Brahma, and it touched the heart of Lord Brahma. Brahma gave this knowledge to Narad Muni by touching his heart. Narad Muni gave that knowledge to Vyasdeva by touching his heart. So that parampara is a chain of hearts. That disciplic succession is actually a chain of hearts. You cannot practice the spiritual life unless and until your heart is touched. You will not be able to practice bhakti. Bhakti is love. Bhakti is not rituals. Bhakti is not just doing deity worship or doing sacrifices. Bhakti is loving Krishna and Radharani. So unless the heart is touched, as we are told in the Prabhupada, it's impossible. Tene Brahma Hridaya, the very first verse, the verse in Srimad Bhagavatam. How did the Lord impart the knowledge? Not through, books, not through just giving the knowledge, but the Lord imparted the knowledge to Lord Brahma in his heart. So that's what makes. So Guru Parampara is mentioned here, and we should not just see or just try to find about Krishna just from knowledge, just by reading books, just by reading the Shastras. No, anyone can read the stories, but trying to actually understand the reason from a person who knows the truth, a self-realized, so the gurus who we learn from, the pure devotees, they have seen the truth. They are connected to Radharani and Krishna. They are able to explain why is it that, you know, Krishna dances with the gopis in the middle of the night. Why is it that Draupadi didn't find any help in the assembly? Why is it that Sita didn't walk away? And why did she go through the Agni Pariksha? So they are able to understand. So instead of speculating, instead of allowing one's false ego to think that I know everything, already making a judgment that this is, you know, wrong or right, but understanding Tadviti Pranipati and wanting submissively, really wanting to know the truth from not just randomly from the whole world, because people are, you know, people won't be able to give you knowledge, but going to the right person, if one is really inquisitive, if one really wants to know the answer to questions one does not understand, especially in the spiritual life, there's no point in asking it to the entire world, because all, you know, people do not have that knowledge. One needs to go to a guru, a proper person, a person who knows the truth. Find a person who's self-realized. Go to the temple, go to the to an elevated devotee, and try to know the truth, instead of allowing one's false ego to say that, you know, let me just ask the question, let me test it from the world, because I think I know it already. So that is what is might happen. That's the risk, and that's why Krishna said. That's why Prabhupada mentions that about the Gyanis and the Yogis, and you know, people who just simply ask questions. And Prabhupada says they are Prabhupada says they are fools. And so in the second point, we are told that ask the questions in the right parampara. It needs to come from the right person. The four sages in the second paragraph of the Prabhupada explains that the four Kumaras, they were actually sincere devotees. And although they had heard from their father Brahma about the personal feature of the Lord, only the impersonal feature was revealed to them. But because they were sincerely searching for the Lord, they finally saw his personal feature, which corresponded with the description given by their father. And so then that is when they became fully satisfied. And so they expressed their gratitude because although they were foolish impersonalists in the beginning, by the grace of the Lord, they now had the good fortune to see the Lord's personal feature. And so these two aspects, one, that yes, the Kumaras were able to see the personal feature of the Lord because they had the desire. And secondly, the fact that they heard it from their father, or in other words, true knowledge comes from a person who has seen the truth. True knowledge does not come from random people in the entire world, because we all have imperfect senses. We do not have the correct senses to be able to impart true knowledge, especially, you know, something as complex as spiritual truth. So if one really needs to understand, we are told, we have, you know, Prabhupada's books, we can hear it from devotees, we can chant, and if one, you know, the devotees say in Kali Yuga, chant the names of the Lord himself. If one is able to have proper desire, one really, really wants to understand and get the answer, Krishna will most definitely arrange it to give that answer to him. Only if one really needs to know the answer without just wanting to test people, without false ego. And so go to the right person. So that's the second point touched upon, that yes, as devotees, our duty is to see to it that we also practice our devotion, find the answers from gurus or from pure devotees, and be able to see the right path. And that will lead us to be able to see the Lord, where we will, as Prabhupada said, we will be able to dance with Krishna, eat with Krishna, talk to Krishna. And so this is what, this is how the Lord actually showed mercy to the four Kumaras, and the four Kumaras acknowledges that in this verse, in our verse today. So with that, I complete the discussion of our verse today. If I've made any mistakes, please do correct me. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, thank you for this excellent class. And I learned that the honors is us. We need to have that desire to see him. And Krishna will reveal. How merciful is that? And I do understand that it is us. We don't want to see him. That's why Krishna is saying, okay, till you are ready, I will not reveal myself. I mean, you can't take him cheaply. So he doesn't want you to put effort, but he just wants your desire. And that also, we are so selfish, or we are so not greedy. What is it? Miserly, that we are not able to even give that our desire to Krishna. So thank you, Mataji, for this wonderful session. I don't have any questions, but if there are any questions from the group, kindly ask. Are there any questions or comments? If there are no questions or comments, we have exhausted our time on this Saturday evening. And I'm really grateful for everybody to join in, and for Mataji as well, joining us from India. And it is very, very late there. So thank you, Mataji, for your time and efforts. Murli Gopal, would you like to end the session for today? Hare Krishna.
Yes, be honored. And thank you so much, Mataji, my pronouns to you. It was such a very enlightening session. Thank you so much. Actually, I was reflecting when you were saying about meditating on the Supreme Lord, the differences between the impersonalist and the Bhakti yogis. When Keshava saw me yesterday, in his group, he said, spiritual life is simple, but it is not easy. It is simple, but it is not easy. And I was trying to get that quote. And as you were explaining, it was becoming clear. There is a simplicity of just surrender to God, surrender to Krishna, and get to know his paraphernalia, what he's doing, activities, and there's that simplicity of even the living aspect of the Bhakti yogis. But it is not easy, as Keshava would say. It requires commitment, it requires discipline, and it requires that enthusiasm, as you're saying, from the four Kumaras. And you have really reinforced that quote deeply today. And I would really like to thank you so much for that. Otherwise, thank you. I would like to request the assembled devotees to kindly unmute. We chant one Mahamantra in glorification of Her Grace, Panchali Kar Mataji, for that excellent session today.
Hare Krishna, Hare
Krishna,
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 Hare
Hare
Hare,
Hare
Hare Rama, Hare
Rama,
Rama,
Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Vanchakalpatarubhyascha
Kripasindhubhyo Bantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki
Jai.
His Holiness Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai.
All glories to the assembled deities. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Her Grace Panchali
Krishna.
Kar Mataji ki Jai. Hare
Jai.
Krishna.
Hare
Thank
Krishna.
you, Prabhutis and Matatis. Hare Krishna.
Hare
Thank you.
Krishna.